Status Podcast.
And so we came to New Hampshire when we moved here, and it was, again, it's a huge culture shock because when we first arrived, we arrived at JFK, and I think we spent some time there.
Man.
And I just remember thinking America was like I had a vision of America in my mind. So, like I mentioned earlier, my dad would take trips here and there to the VR for a couple of weeks every year. And, in his suitcase, his luggage, he would always carry around some Irish Spring soap.
Irish Spring.
Every time he would open up that suitcase, that smell would just come out of that suitcase. For the longest time, I thought that's what America smelled like.
Dang.
I thought America smelled like Irish Spring.
That's silly.
We got off the plane and we landed and we're driving around New York. I was like, man, this doesn't smell like Irish Spring. This doesn't smell like Irish Spring, man.
Hello, and thank you for tuning into the Status Podcast, where Dana, Ty, and Zay encourage student athletes to take action to universally succeed. The Status Podcast is designed to achieve encompassment of the student athlete and their journeys while navigating multiple avenues. Our goal is to discuss, analyze, and create powerful ways that our student athletes can benefit from using their platform to grow holistically. The Status Podcast will feature topics that can open the eyes of student athletes to endless possibilities in sports and beyond. We, as former student athletes, are passionate about the student athlete experience and using our personal testimonies to repurpose the journey of the life, sports, and education. We plan to capitalize on opportunities to speak on topics regarding the wellness of student athletes, both physically and mentally. We will use our voices to empower and supply the world's athletes with tools to be successful during and after their student athlete experience. Be sure to follow our Instagram at status412_.
No, it's going to be a good conversation because you always got some good things to say, some good stories to tell. So it's always going to be good talking to you, bro. In case y'all ain't know, Gus was my roommate in college. As soon as we got there freshman year, me and my boy hit it off. We was in them little rooms together, and ever since we've been cool.
Boy, hey, and what's funny though, you guys had that episode about the compensation of student athletes and all that stuff, and just kind of the what was it, the course that you mentioned, Ty, that all those student athletes should get?
For financial literacy.
Oh boy, we needed that.
Yeah, listen.
You didn't know how to act because honestly, just coming from where I came from, I was the first one in my family to go to college. I never really saw somebody that was close to me doing anything as far as investment. It was paycheck to paycheck. You got to do what you got to do to get by, and then you get to college. And my first taste of actually just getting some money was when I took my official visit. And then I got back to school.
What you get?
Come on, man.
Talk a little bit.
I'm not going to bang my boy, Coach Edsel.
Talk a little bit more about that.
No, wait. So I get back to, at this point in my high school career, I'm playing at a boarding school. And so I go back on campus. And I get a check for like $160, and it was for mileage.
Yeah.
But at the time, I had no idea what it was for. And I get this check, and I'm like, man, this is some illegal stuff going on right here. You know what I mean? So I hit up my recruiting coach, who at the time just happened to be my positional coach. And I was like, hey, Coach Foley, man, I got some money and I don't know where this money's coming from. I don't know what I'm getting this money for. And that's when he broke it down with regards to, the mileage and just for the trip down there. Cause I had to go from, northern New Hampshire all the way down to Connecticut.
Yeah.
And so it was a good amount of money just going down there. I took the trip with my dad. He had to go get me at the boarding school and then we went down there. But, and then you get to school and they give you that first check. Boy, you don't know how to act.
The Pell Grant.
I've never had a bank account. I don't know what to do with this.
What did you do with your money whenever you got that first Pell Grant?
Listen, I remember I might have gone to Walmart to cash it out for like a small fee. For a small fee, they cash it out for you. And so I take the money and I'm back and I got all this money in cash. And I'm like, man, what am I going to do with this money? I've never had this much money in my hands at one time. So I have no bank account. This thing is in my dorm. And Tamir and I don't know, we had the habit of like sleeping with our doors open. And
unlocked.
And I remember just every day I was finding a new spot in the room. Let me put this money here. So nobody got onto me. You know what I mean? If somebody saw me pull a little cash out of this corner, then I'm like, yo, that's where he keeps his money. I was in there every corner. I was putting them in socks, in the drawers, somewhere in the closet, under the bed. Man, and I don't know if you remember, Tamir, at the time, I had a little SpongeBob pillow. And I thought about stuffing that pillow up like dudes was out there doing some illegal activity in the streets and stuff, man. So, that was just a funny story of how, when you get that money, you just, at first, you really don't know what to do and you don't know how to kind of go about it. All I knew is I didn't want to spend it all at once like that. And, I wanted to keep it so that what was that?
Did you guys not have bank accounts growing up in DR?
Oh, I didn't even know what those things were, brother. Like, I came here at a young age of 11. I think I was just turning 11 when I came here. And so all those things I wasn't even thinking about. And it's a funny age when you come here at that age, because at that time, and I talk to Ty about this sometimes, you're getting into grammar and doing all these things with school. And so I stopped that in the Dominican Republic with Spanish. And then I come to the US and then boom, I'm in 6th grade. And I don't know a word of English. I came here with hello and how are you? That's all I know. And a couple of words, but my accent, you couldn't understand what I was saying. But you get put into a classroom, and I don't know if you want to just get into it now, or do you want to go through the whole thing?
No, go ahead, bro. Talk your story, bro. Talk your story.
Yeah. So I moved to Manchester, New Hampshire, which was, if anything, a culture shock. It was just, you're in the middle. And the only thing that made me feel a little better was the fact that when I got to school and I was placed there, I was placed in an ESL course, which is English as a second language. And so I was in a classroom with, people who, grew up to be my friends. But at the time, it was refugees from Bosnia, refugees from South Sudan, and none of us spoke English. And so you want to have a conversation with somebody. It's like, man, I don't know English and I definitely don't know what you speak. How do we figure this thing out? So we were in the classroom just trying to learn and assimilate as much as possible. And being so detached from your original culture just kind of fast forwards or speeds up your assimilation process. You have to learn or you're going to get left behind. So that was kind of my early years coming here. And that's within like a few months of me just getting here. I thought I was going to come here and be out of school for a month or so. My dad put me in school right away. My brother and I were bummed about that. We thought we were going to have a little break, but that was just early on, just as far as getting into the classroom and things like that. I mean, this is what I'm talking right now. I didn't even plan on talking about till we kind of got through everything that we were doing. But this is kind of some of the stuff I'm going to be speaking about. And obviously, as a foreign student athlete, it's going to be different than a lot of people's.
Yeah, for sure. When did you start playing sports? Whenever, as soon as you got here, I know you came and you got into the classroom immediately. When did you start playing sports and getting into things like that? What was the first extracurricular activity you did?
The first actual team sport.
No, the first anything, like anything beyond your schoolwork, no matter if it's sports. So what was the first thing you got into as a kid? Was it sports or was it something different?
Well, kind of just being born in the Dominican Republic.
Tell them, Gus.
Where I'm from. It's almost ingrained in our culture right now at this point with the baseball. You grew up around baseball all the time, So when you say, I could say, I play sports growing up, but really what I mean is baseball. There was really nothing much. It was just that, and every kid either threw a baseball, a rock, a lemon.
Man,
you popped your sister's doll head off and threw that. Anything with regards to anything you could find that would simulate any baseball activity is what you did. We would take caps of bottles, toss them, try to hit them with sticks, beans, corn. It goes on, but everything was always revolving around baseball. And I wasn't really into sports like that. My brother was more so into sports than I was, and he's a year younger than I am. And so he was more involved with kind of team activities. I just kind of did it kind of on the side. He wanted to play catch. I go out there and play catch with him. And you would do things sometimes depending on your condition over there. You either had the luxury of having enough money to buy a pair of gloves or buying a catching glove or in a baseball bat, or you just didn't. And what a lot of guys would do, you could research it and look at it, and it hits home with me. I remember Mariano Rivera, pitcher for the Yankees. He used to talk about it all the time, how he used to walk around with a little piece of cardboard box and he used to fold it a certain way and just hold it in his hand, and that was his glove. I experienced that same thing, so but I was lucky enough to where at the age of 3, my father came to the United States of America. He was, and from that time on, his goal was to get my mom and my brother and I to the United States. And so from the age of 3 to the age of 11, I rarely saw my dad. He would come for a few weeks here and there every year, but he would always send us stuff. And we were some of the most fortunate people growing up where I was with regards to things. And just to kind of put it in perspective, it just, we would get things like Frosted Flakes, like stuff like that was like a luxury,
that's dope.
That's part of American culture, and you want to be involved with American culture as much as possible. And those were little things like that just helped you out as far as growing up. But playing sports, I didn't really get into it till I came to the U.S. And so I came here at the age of 11, and it wasn't until I was around maybe 12 that I got involved, around 12 that I got into Little League Baseball. That was the first time ever playing a team sport for me. And you show up to a team when you barely know the language, my brother and I, and the first thing they would do is, these guys, we have to play them a little bit. They would toss us in the outfield. They didn't know where to put us. We can't communicate really well. I remember my first game, they placed me on left field and they put my brother on right field. And
the biggest left fielder. And
he said the biggest left fielder.
Yeah, no, and I was huge, man, when I was a little boy, man. And we would go out there and just warm up, toss the ball around, and we were throwing it. We were chucking it. You just grew up just throwing something. And so we were, as far as throwing ability, a little more developed somewhat than the other kids, and my brother especially. But eventually they put us in different spots. You got to pitch in, playing first base, third base, and all that stuff. And I didn't really get into other sports till after. Then came basketball because my ESL teacher was a basketball coach for a church league, Pat O'Neill, and he got us involved in basketball. So that was kind of my second sport there. After playing basketball for a while, you know, he kind of saw me moving around, saw my size, and, you know, thought, you know, you ever thought about playing football? And I looked at him and I was like, I don't even know what that is.
Man.
You know, it wasn't until like the age of 13 I really knew what football was. I had no idea. And I remember there was a small middle school team near where I lived called the Manchester Bears. And he took me to a practice to check him out. And then he asked me how I liked it. And I was like, I don't like it at all.
You were scared to death. You saying people going with a little contact. You were scared to death.
No, it wasn't even that. I just didn't understand the game. You know, to me, it just seemed like a bunch of dudes just slamming each other in the floor, you know, like on the ground. So I was like, I don't know what's going on. And he was like, no, trust me, you'll like it if you play. You know, I think you could be pretty good at it. And so, you know, my dad just to kind of just get me out the house, keep me active, you know, because I was a little chubby back then.
Back then?
Back then. Come on, man. Look a little similar now. Come on.
Your dad moved? He moved up to America, to the New Hampshire with you?
So he, from the age of 3 till like I was about 10, he lived in New York.
Okay.
He was there in the Bronx for a long time. And it wasn't until it was almost time for my brother and I to come to the U.S. that he moved to New Hampshire because of better job opportunities. And it was just better for a family situation at the time with regards to living space and those things. So he moved there just with us in mind. And so we came to New Hampshire when we moved here, you know, and it was, again, it's a huge culture shock because when we first arrived, we arrived at JFK, and I think we spent some time there. Man. And I just remember thinking America was like I had a vision of America in my mind. So like I mentioned earlier, my dad would take trips here and there to the ER for a couple of weeks every year. And, you know, in his suitcase, his luggage, he would always carry around some Irish Spring soap.
Irish Spring.
Every time you would open up that suitcase, that smell would just come out of that suitcase. For the longest time, I thought that's what America smelled like.
Dang.
I thought America smelled like Irish Spring.
That's silly.
We got off the plane and we landed and we're driving around New York. I was like, man, this doesn't smell like Irish Spring. This doesn't smell like Irish Spring, man.
Not New York.
No. So, and then you think, you know, I'm thinking snow. And I'm gonna be frank with you. My brother and I at that age, we're thinking white people.
Man.
We're like, yo, we're gonna see white people all the time. And I come from, there's people of all complexions, you know. Right. My dad's very fair skinned compared to my mom. My mom is darker than I am. And you know, my great grandfather was very dark. So I was used to different complexions, but we were just, man, white people. There's gonna be white people everywhere. And, you know, when you're driving around the middle of the Bronx, we're like, man, it looked like this is my neighborhood. My neighborhood. So it was that experience early on, you know, just little funny things like that. And then with the food as well, I thought I was gonna have some real American, I don't know, something. Meatloaf, I don't know. My dad at one point go eat. And I was like, yeah, let's go have some food. And we get to a restaurant and everybody's talking in Spanish. We're ordering chicken and rice with some plantains. I was like, man, I just had this last night. What is going on here? You know, and then we got to New Hampshire and I was like, ooh.
Yeah, this is more like America. This is New Hampshire was more of what you viewed as America than New York was.
Yeah.
Wow.
Man,
so Gus, growing up, like, you know, between that age you said 3 and 11 over there in DR, is the perspective of America pretty much the same around, you know, all your friends and everyone else down in the DR? that's like you said, quote unquote, Irish Springs or like a better place?
Yes. So that was always the thing. I mean, that's the American dream. Just coming here and just having a better life is the goal for everybody. And you know, you don't really realize it at that age. For me, you know, you get it from your parents, and you know, coming in and you arrive here, and to get a little more serious tone to the conversation, it's quite a bit of pressure sometimes, and it depends on how how you react. Depends on how well you do, because you go from you're a young kid coming in, and then the expectations of you have to have a better life than me start creeping in. Like we tee you up. Now it's time for you to hit a home run out the park. You know, there's no reason why you shouldn't be successful. You're here in an environment where anything is possible. So, and there's a lot of pressures that come with that, with regards to like learning the language, being able to translate or interpret for your parents coming in.
Man,
I remember early on, once I started picking up the language a little quicker than like my dad would, because you come here at an older age like he did, and it's a little harder for you to learn the language. As a young kid, it's quite a bit easier for you to pick up the language. And I'm 11 years old, 12 years old, trying to interpret tax returns.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I didn't know what this stuff meant in Spanish. I don't know what this stuff meant in English, because I wasn't exposed to that stuff. I'm 12. I'm 11 years old. So I seen a lot of people kind of buck off that kind of pressure, and they tend to just, I'm gonna do my own thing. And there's other people that kind of rise to the occasion and just like, you know what, I'm gonna continue to follow what it is my parents want me to do, and try to be successful with that. And that's kind of where I tended to kind of roll when I was here.
At what point did you, I know you said your coach took you to go play football and you was like, I don't want to do this. At what point did you feel like, all right, football is something that I actually like to do? And then at what point did you feel like, all right, football is something that I'm actually good at?
Right. So I think for me, it was backwards, because I didn't know what football was. The idea of a better life, go to college, was always something that my parents mentioned to us. But the vehicle, the what it is that helps you get there, was really never discussed. So once I started playing football, for me, it was realizing that I was pretty good at this before I was like, man, I really like this. It was, I'm pretty good at this, and I can see myself maybe getting helped. That's what I thought about in the beginning, getting help to go to college. Maybe not a complete scholarship, but just as a means to get me there, and kind of make some resources available to me once I get there.
At what age did it hit you to know that football wasn't actually a thing that can pay for your education? Like, when did you figure that out? Who kind of told you that?
So probably freshman year of high school, I had the opportunity to go to a private school just based off my athletic ability. They were able to kind of help me out financially. And it just so happened that the guy that was coaching me for CYO was a football coach there. So I reunited with him with regards to sports and somewhat, school related environment. And he was the one that was in my ear about, if you stick to this, you could probably go to school for free. And to an immigrant kid whose goals were to have a better life than your parents, and their tutelage was always go to college. When they say you can go to college for free, you're like, all right, I'm going through this wall.
Yeah, this is what I think you to
go to college for free. So that was always my mindset. After that, just kind of.
Whenever you got to high school, did you still have friends that you communicated with in DR, or did you kind of leave that behind entirely?
Yeah, so I mean that's been so I haven't gone back since I've been here.
Oh wow.
So I've had opportunities, but and the irony of this is sometimes sports has gotten in the way because I might have been doing the Christmas tournament when the holidays are coming up and somebody's we're taking a trip, but I have a Christmas tournament, and I was involved. I'm like, I have a goal in mind to go to school for free at any cost, and so I would miss some of those opportunities because something always happened to show up. And then as you come here, your intermediate, your family's here at this point. I have cousins that are in the Dominican Republic. My grandmother was in the Dominican Republic, but she passed away my freshman year of college. And so it was almost like in my eyes, it's like, you know what, I really have no reason to go back. But, so I've grown detached to that part of my life, but not the culture. Because I experience it every day. When I'm in my household, I'm talking in Spanish, I'm eating food, I'm listening to the music, Besides going back and actually being in the island, I'm doing everything up here.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you miss it sometimes?
Want something? Yeah, go ahead, bro.
You miss it sometimes?
Me? Oh, when it gets cold up here, that's something you really get used to. You really don't get used to that stuff. Just the winter time and the snow. And at first you're like very excited when you first get here and you learn real quick. You're like, man, this is tough, because the first time we had a major snowstorm, my brother and I, when we first came here, we were living right across the park, and snow started falling down for the first time, and we're like excited. I'm like, oh man, we've never seen snow before. My dad's gonna take us outside, and we go out there and we try to do the most American thing we can think of, and we try to build a snowman. And we go out there trying to build a snowman, and we have no gloves on. And we're out there for a solid half hour. We can't feel our fingers. Our fingers are like this by the time we get and we don't know what to do with them because we can't feel a thing and it hurt. So we turn on the hot water in the sink and we just put our hands in there, and they made it worse. We were crying, down our eyes. It was, and then from then on, it was like, you know what? I've had my experience with snow. That's really what kind of. And so when times like that happen, in the snow, the cold, you do miss it, and just the way of the way of life, the things you deem important down there, is a little different than up here.
How so, bro?
So just like I said, this is only my experience. I'm sure somebody's going to have something different to say. I'm sure if you ask like one of our former teammates, Andreas Canapi, what his experience is as far as being a foreign student athlete, his is going to be different because he had that connection. He would always go back, With me, it was different because I can only go off of what I remember when I was a young kid.
Yeah.
So I just remember it being very relaxed. People are waking up early. They're hanging out by stores, listening to music, people are going to work, coming back around noon, taking naps for like an hour or so, back to work.
That's so.
Everything just, island life, that's really kind of how you can sum it up. The weather's beautiful and you're just a little more relaxed. For me growing up, we had chickens growing up. We had some crops, it was right there in your backyard. You would go out, pick some fruit. It was a little less stressful. If I could just sum it up into some more, it's just less stressful, and you appreciate the little things a little more. Because I know coming in here as far as a culture, American culture, there was a lot of stuff I saw early on that were taken for granted. I grew up in a place where there were dirt floors. You're living in a wooden house with tin roofs, no AC, just a few fans. You didn't have a legit bathroom. You could have had, a kitchen and a water hose and a curtain. That was your bathroom. And you had outhouses, latrines that you would. I didn't know what a toilet was till I didn't see a toilet till I came to the US.
Wow.
So that is the perspective. So even when just going through life now as an adult, after experiencing all those things, I appreciate little things more so than maybe some other people that didn't grow up in that sort of environment.
With that said, bro, whenever you got to college, did you use football as a tool to live a better life than your parents had growing up? Or did you want to use that as an avenue to millions like most people do whenever they get to college?
Just that was never my mindset, to be honest with you. Even once I was into college, because it was always, go to college, do well, graduate, and then live after that. Just have a career. And then it wasn't until, because I didn't grow up with anybody that went to college, played a Division I, sport. I was the first one around kind of my circle that was doing that. And so the expectations for me were never that.
To become a millionaire.
Yeah, it was always just get to school because that was my goal. Get to college, have it be paid, and just do the best you can be as far as being a good student and take care of business. And then from then on, it's just kind of have a career and just kind of every parent. I would say now that I'm a father, you want your ceiling to be your kid's floor.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where you want them to start off. And my parents were that way. I'm going to be that way. I have some experience now as somebody who's gone to college. I can tell my daughter, like, this is what you should probably want to do. This is what's going to help you out more once you get into the real world. This is going to put you out there so you can have more success. With me, it was like, I don't know what major to pick. I'm in college now. I just didn't know, is a degree going to be enough, or is there some success to this thing?
Yeah.
Guys, Ty, I wanted to ask, just on the same lines of what Ty was saying, but coming from the DR, right, and then making that move to the US, like, did you have any heroes or like people that you looked up to from the Dominican Republic, aside from family, or was there anything that kind of motivated you since you weren't playing, you weren't into football yet, and then you got to America? You know what I mean? So was there anything that kind of like was driving you besides your parents, direction?
And off of that, they like growing up in America, a lot of us, we look at athletes as our heroes.
We do.
The LeBron James, the Allen Iverson, the Michael Vicks,
Kobe.
Carmelo Anthony.
Carmelo.
Not many like Carmelo, but
that was DB's boy for the still, right?
But yeah, that's a good question, man. Was there anybody in that light in your eyes?
Oh, I mean, like I said, just taking it back to baseball. It's you see people playing all the time, and as a culture, we're very prideful of the success that a lot of those athletes were having in the major leagues. You would hear about it all the time, and you went, and you heard from the rag to riches stories,
man,
of like a Sammy Sosa growing up for me. Yeah. And those guys, a guy that was going out there shining shoes.
Yeah.
And now he's, playing baseball at the highest level and, leading the league in home runs and just putting you out there on the map. You hear about a small little island, and then there's some pride to that. So you look at that and then you're like, man, that's crazy as a kid growing up. But I was fortunate with my parents because growing up, but not everybody is lucky enough to make it.
Mm-hmm.
Or every Sammy Sosa you see, there's a bunch of people you see around you growing up that gave a lot of everything they had going on around them to give it a shot. And by the time they're old enough, it's too late.
Yeah.
They're not getting picked when they're 16 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a tragedy now because you've been part of an academy, let's say a baseball academy, and because the regulations are not the same really over there. I don't know if you guys are too familiar with that stuff, but
somewhat.
But I mean, the education system. Sometimes I remember being in second grade, being in there with like an 18-year-old, trying to figure stuff out. Because whether he had to leave for some reason or just never really got involved in school, and then he's just trying to kind of pick up the slack and learn. But you hear about tragedies like that all the time, where this guy was a baseball player and now he's not, or he was on his way to be and now he's not, and it's like after that, there's really no more other opportunities. That's why coming to America was so important, because there's other avenues, there's other things you can do. Over there, I mean, besides baseball and getting rich doing that, for a little kid like me, at least for me, the experience of mine was it was really nothing else, to be honest.
Yeah. Gus, growing up here, when we talk about our heroes, like Dana, Zay, and I, we grew up in a real sports-heavy environment. So, like the people that we admired growing up, we actually felt like that was an attainable goal. Like you growing up, seeing Sammy Sosa and the people that come from DR, did you guys feel like you were actually able to attain that goal? Or is that something that you just looked at as like, wow, he's like God and we can never touch anything like that?
No, I think every kid goes out there, you're throwing around anything you can throw around, playing baseball all the time. I'm talking about, school's done. You do your schoolwork. I know for me, it was like, my parents were on me. My mom was on me. Like, I got to do my schoolwork. You get home, you have a uniform on, you take it off so you don't get it dirty, so you can, wear it the next day. And then, you do your work and then go out and, you go out around and play. And sometimes, for me, like I said, I wasn't really into sports. I was forced into sports by, by the electricity in my town going out. Now I can't be watching TV. I got to go outside and do something. So those things was kind of kept me. I'm out here playing catch. I'm out here kind of running around, playing some other kind of games. But I was a real homebody growing up, but baseball was so around me that you could just pick it up and play and do whatever. Somebody was playing some type of game. It was revolved around baseball. And with regards to just kind of looking at goals and seeing people playing, and is that obtainable? Every kid thought, I'm gonna go out there and do the same thing. Sammy Sosa had the formula. I'm gonna shine shoes. I'm gonna keep playing. And I'm gonna be a millionaire.
Yeah.
But you're naive when you're a young kid.
Yeah, for sure.
And then, I come here and, school is the number one thing. Education is the number one thing. And those are the things that were instilled in me by my parents. And then, I was just so happy. It just so happened. I got okay at football, and then I took it very serious and then got better over time and had the opportunity to get a scholarship, but all those things, that whole process to me was just a funny thing. I was just happy. I was going along for the ride, and, I went. So, like I said, my freshman year in high school, I went to a private school because of sports, and then my brother was coming up from 8th grade. But financially, they couldn't take care of both of us. So we ended up going to a public school together. And then once I was at a public school, we played football together for a few years. I got hurt. I tore my ACL. And then because I was a good student, I was a good kid, somebody got in touch with the same gentleman that I was talking about earlier, Pat O'Neill. And, said, do you know anybody that would take advantage of an opportunity to maybe go to a boarding school and do well there? And my name was one of the first ones he mentioned. I took a visit. They liked me. I went up there. And so I had the opportunity to go to a boarding school for 2 years, a boarding school that around the time might have been more expensive than most colleges to go there. You're talking about upwards to like $40,000 a year. to go to a school like that and get an opportunity to do that. And so I was just going for the ride. I wasn't taking any of that stuff for granted because I knew where I came from.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Young too.
I'm in there rubbing shoulders with kids that have oil money. People coming from Switzerland, coming down. They're taking limo rides to New York from New Hampshire on like a long weekend. And it was just crazy to me. And so I really just kind of enjoy all those things. But
what was the experience like with your roommate?
Over there? Oh man, my boy Luke Robinson. It's funny because I go there and we meet each other for the first time. He's from Australia. I'm from the Dominican Republic, but I've already been in the U.S. for quite a bit. And I have an accent to him. He has an accent to me, and it was a hard time understanding each other for the first 2 weeks. Man, I didn't know what he was saying, and then he would have different words for certain things that to them flip-flops weren't flip-flops. I remember one time we're sitting in the room where we're doing study hall, and he's on his computer, I'm on my computer doing work, and he just looks up and he was like, "You know what? I think I'm gonna go to Walmart and get myself some thongs." I looked at him, I was like, "What?" He's like, "Get myself some thongs," and I was like, "Man, Luke, if I see you walking around, there's gonna be some problems." And he was all confused at first with me. But he caught himself and he was like, "Oh no, that's not what I mean. Like, you call them flip-flops."
Flip-flops.
Little things like that. At first it was just trying to understand each other. And I remember one time where I told him, "Oh man, I'm gonna go take a shower." I come back, he's not in the room anymore. But because he knows I'm in, I just went into the shower. He knocks on the door and he's asking me if I'm decent, for him to come in. And I didn't know what he said. I couldn't understand anything he was saying. And he was asking me if I was somebody else.
Are you decent?
When he asked me, "Are you decent?" I was like, "Nah, man, this is Gus."
This is Gus, bro.
He poked his head through that door and was like, "What?" And we walked to each other maybe for like 5 minutes. It's like he didn't know what to do. We were like, "Man." He said,
"Someone was listening to y'all laughing."
Like, "Oh, that's what you're saying." I thought you were calling me something else.
Whenever you got to college, that's whenever you got your U.S. citizenship.
Oh man, yeah.
Was that something that was like a big deal? Was that a burden off your shoulders to become a U.S. citizen now in college?
Yeah, I mean that is a milestone in letting you've assimilated. You're part of this country now.
Wow.
And I don't care who you are. There's always, sometimes immigrants they walk on eggshells sometimes when they're in a country they're not usually from, because they feel like if you get in somewhat of any trouble, you're getting deported. Mm-hmm. You're subject to losing your green card or things like that. And so for me, that was like a huge milestone and letting me know I've been accepted as part of this culture now. And I was the first one to do it. And then it was my brother, and then it was my father. And I remember when I was going through the process, they give you this little civics book that you have to study. And I don't know if you remember this, Ty. Mm-hmm. I would read through this thing, and the questions they were asking me, I'm like, man, I'm never going to be an American. The questions, were pretty tough at first because you don't really know about those things, especially early in college. You're so ingrained into just playing sports and doing the schoolwork. You almost forget about the other things in the world because it occupies so much of your time. And I'm studying this book. They're asking you how many representatives there are in this and Congress and all of this and all of that stuff you really didn't really think about like that.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so it was.
It's crazy questions.
So I would sometimes I would give Ty the book and he would ask me questions. Sometimes I remember Michaela would come by, and Michaela John, and then she would ask me questions and stuff like that, and I would study. And I remember I took a trip down there and to New Hampshire to take the test, and it wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. They asked me maybe 3 questions, and they were like, "All right, you're all set." And then
Michaela loved asking you questions from that book. Michaela loved asking you questions from that book.
Yeah, well, we were all getting it wrong.
How long was that process?
How long was it? So there's an application process that you go through. You got to pay some money, and from what I remember, it was a few months.
That's a long time.
It was a few months for me. The process to get me to America was way longer than it was for me to become an American citizen. Like I said, my dad came from the age of 3 till I was 11. My dad was working on getting my brother and I here. So it took all those years to get him, to get us here, or to get the U.S. to accept us and bring us here.
10 years.
Somewhat, yes, right around there. And, the goal was to get my mom and my brother and I all here together. But something was mixed up, and my mom actually got accepted first. And so she was here a year before my brother and I were. So my dad was in the U.S. My mom was in the U.S. now. And so now I'm in the DR with my grandmother, and they're both here, So that was a tough little adjustment for me, just kind of being away from both of them. But I always knew it was a way to the end goal, to get myself here and have a better life. So then my brother and I came a year after my mother. But with regards to the becoming an American citizen, that for me was a few months.
You have any feelings on, like, right now, like immigration, what's going on in the country? Do you ever keep up with that whole process?
I mean, not really, to be honest with you.
No politics?
No, I try to stay away so much from politics.
So do we.
Boy, so why you ask that question?
Because he's a foreign student. He was a foreign student.
With regards to immigration and all that stuff, for me, it's just, everybody's experience is a little different. The mechanism or the reason why you come to this country is always different. And that's something I learned early on, because like I said, in the ESL class,
right,
you meet people who maybe they didn't even want to leave their country. But they were forced to be here because the situation where they were at was so difficult. And for me, that was even the more humbling experience. I thought I had it bad. Then when you hear about war-torn countries, and the experiences some of my friends had when they were growing up, mine doesn't even compare. I came here for a better life. They came here so they wouldn't die, like it's stuff like that, it just puts a lot of stuff into perspective. Yeah, and so from early on, these are things I understood, and so I carried myself that way. I never really got too high, or too low on things. And so
that's serious. That's good. I'm sorry, Tap, but no, not too high, too low. That's good. I'll write that down.
I think for me, like, going to DR put a lot of things in perspective. Because you're on a resort, but whenever you need to go to like excursions and stuff, you like ride through the neighborhoods and to get to where you're going. And you're kind of just watching, everything go on. You're seeing people out there like literally trying to build their house from ground up with like tin and wood and stuff like that. And then, you see what is deemed to be the nice neighborhoods in Dominican Republic is you're like, this is what you guys consider nice. And then you come back home and then like, people that's living in the area like we grow up in, that'll be like luxury in DR. You know what I mean? And then some people, living in the projects, people in Dominican Republic would love to have, that type of atmosphere. Serious. And it really put a lot of things into perspective for me to like really, be grateful for what we have over here, because man, people would die to, be able to have the living situations that we have. Even if you are in like the lowest of the low brackets here in America, people in DR would, kill to have something like that.
Is it that different compared to PR? Sorry, Gus, I was asking Ty. I never been to Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic.
I remember I always try to make it a point. Anytime I go somewhere, like go through like the rough neighborhoods, go through the I want to see how they really living. Remember, I rode through. I seen a kid outside. There was a tub in the yard, and they had the bucket of water just scooping, washing up with no regards of anybody walking past, no nothing.
Wow.
Dang,
I mean, like that was my reality growing up.
Yeah,
it's raining outside. People outside while it's raining with a bar of soap, showering under a gutter. It was things of that. Little kids walking around naked, barefooted. The situation. But I mean, don't get me wrong. Those were some of the best years of my life. With regards to just looking back at it now and just understanding maybe this is why I'm the way I am now. It created a foundation for me when I got here, to where I didn't take things for granted. I tended to be humble about certain things, and like I said, I never got too high or too low because of those realities for me when I was growing up. And so those things kind of help you. And for me, to be honest, with regards to being a student athlete, a lot of guys, I experienced this, a lot of guys tended to struggle when they left high school to go live in college for the first time alone from their parents and maybe their town, which they probably had never left before in their life. For me, it was a quick adjustment because I had already experienced moving from a place that was foreign to me. I didn't speak the language. I wasn't comfortable. And so when I got to college, it's like I didn't, miss a beat. It didn't bother me that much. Some other guys might struggle if
like me.
Some other guys might struggle leaving home for the first time and that. So and then also, I would not be honest if I didn't say that maybe going to boarding school for 2 years for me also set me up in a place to where I already knew study hall, I already knew those things, and I was already used to those things. So when they told me I got to be at this place from 8 to 10 to do schoolwork, I was already used to that, and so I wasn't really tripping. Some guys were, they were twiddling their thumbs, like, man, what am I doing? And like, they didn't acclimate to the change as quick as I did.
Yeah, for sure. You're right about that, bro. Gus would be in study hall, like, doing what he needed to do, getting his work done, and then we have other guys, and they're just rapping. Rapping and study hall, and everybody making beats for him.
Long freestyle.
You was making the beats, Ty?
We was just listening to my boy rap, and got study hall turned up a little bit.
Got study hall turned up.
Hey Gus, what did you major in at UConn?
So I double major in psychology and sociology.
Okay, what played a part in that?
For me, in high school, I remember I took a course, and it was a psychology course, and I found it interesting. I had so many people in my life early on that were helpful. That I was lucky enough to, if I was deviating somewhere, I had somebody grab me and be like, "Nah, don't go that way. This is what you need to do." A lot of people don't have those people around in their lives. It just so happens that this person was in my life, and my parents were also very heavy in getting me into the right track. And so for me, helping people is something I always wanted to do, being involved in my community, doing these things. And so I knew I wanted to kind of go into somewhat of like maybe social work and all that stuff. But then again, not having people around me like that, went to college, did all these things, I was naive to the fact of, all right, now I'm done with school. how do, you know, I want to take care of people. I want to help people out, but how do I take care of my family? It just so happens to be that, you know, those sort of jobs, those fields, you know, they're very rewarding, but they're very underpaid and not as appreciated. And so,
That's true.
you know, I was navigating once I got out of college and what I really wanted to do and all that stuff. But helping people was always something that I wanted to be involved in, being kind of like a pillar in my community and being that person to where somebody can look at me and kind of maybe come from the same sort of realities or have the same experiences I had growing up and say, you know what, I can, you know, go to school. Maybe not be a football player, but, you know, this guy's always preaching the opportunities that are available to me. And, you know, whether it be playing a flute, I mean, you can go to college for anything, you know, so it's
Right.
just making sure people realize that and letting them know, like, just get yourself, you know, get your foot in the door. And then from then on is, you know, put in that work and really think about, you know, make a real business decision when it comes to when you're in school, as far as what it is you want to do when you get out of there. Place yourself in a scenario where, you know, you're ahead of the pack.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I think this was good. Did you guys got any other questions for Gus?
I got one thing I was thinking about, Gus, man. I was just checking out some different stuff, bro, and I came across a story that was talking about a condition that you came down with in 2013, bro. That you know, it affected your health greatly. You know what I mean? I think it was before the season. It was like it had something to do with blood clots, and I think it was in your breathing, right?
Yeah. So that was early into my junior year. You know, we finished camp. You know, at that point, I was starting, going into the season as a starter at right guard, and we had our first few games. And I remember we had an early bye week, and I just remember we had a few days off, and I was feeling kind of a little under the weather. And then we came back and we had an indoor practice in Shank, and I just remember just having difficulty breathing. And in my head, I'm thinking to myself, like, man, there's no way I got out of shape in 4 days.
4 days.
I'm running around now, and I'm like, I could barely breathe. And that went on for a few weeks, and it was getting worse and worse, but I really wasn't telling anybody. And it wasn't till it really started affecting me outside of football. You know, it wasn't just practice or the games. It was me walking to class on campus. You know, my leg is getting tight. I can't have a long-winded conversation with somebody. I have to stop myself and take a breath. So it was really affecting my ability to be involved in the classroom. And I just remember thinking, like, man, this is something must be wrong. And, you know, it got to the point where then I started getting like palpitations in my heart. And it went on from, you know, me just having difficulty breathing to that. And it got to the point where I'm like, man, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm not really being completely honest with everybody. And they got to the point where, like, I would leave by this time, you know, we're living in apartments. You know, everybody got their own individual room. You got your little lock to your room. You go to sleep. I was leaving the door unlocked because I felt like I might not wake up. That's how serious it got for me, because, you know, with my heart, the palpitations, you know, I would be sleeping in the middle of the night and it would feel like somebody was like pounding my chest, like, wake up, you know? And so I would get up real quick and I would just kind of be like, man, there's no one here. Like, and then my breathing was a little shot. And then I started talking to the trainers after that. And that's when I remember we played, we might have got done with South Florida. And then we were getting ready for the next game. And I couldn't even make it through warmups. And I was like, man, you guys got to take me to the hospital right now. And so they took me to the hospital. And then that's when the doctor came back. And, you know, he was like, let's talk cold turkey. And he sat me down and he was like, yeah, you know, we got to shut you down. You have what's called myocarditis, which is like swelling in the lining of the heart. And it's affecting the pumping capacity of your heart. And this is what the real scary part for me was. he was like, we don't know if it's getting better. We don't know if it's getting worse. But we have to monitor you right now. All I remember him saying is like, your pumping capacity needs to be at a certain point. I was less than 50% of that.
Jesus.
So I was out for a few weeks. And then once I started rehabbing again, they put me on some medication. That's when the blood clots were made clear, because I would do some conditioning stuff and
your leg would hurt.
Yeah, something like my calf was getting tight. It was getting warm. It was getting hot. And it was big. And as soon as I told them that, they rushed me to the hospital right there and then. They were like, "Oh, we got to take you to the hospital again." And that's when they did the test, and they were like, "You have blood clots in your legs and in your lungs. So you're completely shut down now." So I wasn't able to do anything. And so they put me on blood thinners. And then, I didn't do I didn't finish the rest of the season. I didn't do any of the winter conditioning. I didn't do any spring ball. And then I was rehabbing enough to where I did some of the summer workouts and then made it through camp. And, we had quite a bit of turmoil at UConn with regards to coaches. So,
oh man, a lot.
We had a new coach come in and all that stuff. I was lucky enough that I was playing. I was happy enough to be playing when all this stuff was going on, that I was still in consideration to get a lot of snaps, because a new coach comes in, they want to get their guys in there. So that's just kind of, so that was like, again, that's my perspective with all those things. So I was going for the ride, man. I was just enjoying being part of it, traveling, going on the plane, going to the city, having some clam chowder. I was looking at the little things. And I was just enjoying all the little things because of my experiences growing up. And I knew that everything that I was experiencing now was, far above and beyond where I would have been at that age if I had stayed in the Dominican Republic.
For sure. It was so crazy because me and Gus was roommates at the time, and neither one of us could play football.
Yeah.
It was something in that room, man.
You can say that.
Yeah. I'm just saying there's a few guys, because they with the football team, they would rotate rooms around, and there was some guys were juniors, they were there before, and they move on to a different spot. Then they put some other guys on the football team, and I remember those two rooms. The two guys that were there before had some pretty serious injuries.
Yeah,
they put us in there. And we was in there, man. I almost started having my mom come through and do a few prayers.
Y'all got that Latin connection too, so both of y'all families.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Come in there and do something.
We used to always say that, like, man, this room is cursed, boy.
Yeah. We didn't know what it was, man. It was just, we went out around the same time.
Yeah.
So I remember I was out, and then I think I might have been walking around. What was that? I don't remember if I was I don't remember if I was practicing when you got hurt, Ty.
Yeah, I don't remember.
I think because I remember I might have walked over. So I definitely wasn't on the offensive side of the ball. I was probably right in the middle of the two fields, because I walked over to where you was at before you were taken away in the ambulance.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Yeah.
Gus was one of the people. Remember I told you about the experience with my academic advisors?
Yeah.
Gus was one of the people that they told not to hang out with me.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
They said that boy was a bad influence.
They said he was a trapper.
I don't know why, man. We were just like, we came back, we would sit down and talk about these things, and we were like, I don't understand. I mean, they I guess, label you with, with where you come from, and I have no idea how they would even arrive at that. Ty, I'm actually very proud of Ty, because he the level of development with regards to his involvement with schoolwork now and just all that stuff is great to see from when he first got there to where he is now. Like they would confuse Ty with, they would always say is a lack of intelligence, when really, if you had a conversation with him, it was never that. It was a lack of maybe effort, and they would confuse those two things. and they would just deem you like, you're just not smart enough. When really it was just at the time, more just like a lot of kids, he wasn't just interested. But
you should have seen where we came from with this guy.
He's putting that effort in now, and and I'm telling you, man, it's great to see from me, Ty.
Appreciate you, bro.
No, I really appreciate just you doing what you're doing. Keeps me motivated now, and I got to do something. You put something up you doing in the gym. I'm like, man, I got to get in there.
Get in there.
You out here posting about reading a book. I was like, man, I got to get a few pages into it.
He really don't be reading them for real though.
That's really good, man. So I was lucky enough to have Ty as my roommate because those people rub off on you. Yeah. Those people rub off on you. Whoever you hang around with, they just rub off on you. So you brush shoulders with them, and some of that stuff sticks with you. So if you hanging around some people who are really not up to doing the right things, all that stuff is gonna, you're either gonna be getting involved yourself, or you're gonna be guilty by association. And,
and so it always comes down to that saying: you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So that's true, man.
Your company.
True stuff.
But, I just gave you a little bit of kind of my experience with regards to just kind of going through school and being part of that stuff. But like I said, everybody's little experiences might be different, and that's why I really like what you guys are doing. This platform right here, you guys are giving us, and you're showing people out here that what it's like to be a student athlete. Overall, but just also letting them know that doesn't completely define who we are.
Yep.
That's not everything we do, and that's not everything we're about. You kind of it's good to see people now outside of football, and so you can see kind of what kind of realm they've evolved into.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I've taken a lot of those qualities that went into being a good student athlete, being a good football player, into your day-to-day life, your work, and how you carry yourself, and you could tell a difference. That a lot of people tend to gravitate towards you, and a lot of people, whether it be supervisory folks, people that are in supervisory positions, and people who are high-level positions, they take notice of you, and they see you, and they're like, man, I really like how this guy carries himself.
For sure.
That's true.
Don't even, for those folks that are still in school, man, take advantage of everything you got. Continue to apply those things you're learning in school, whether it be hard work, putting in the effort, and really buckling down and having good time management, and those things are gonna make you successful. Consider your major. I know early on, Ty talk about the academic part of it coming into school. We had a few guys that when we would come in, they would be like, "Nah, you can't do that. It's too much time. Yeah. There's too much outside of the weekly kind of schedule. It would go from the weekdays. Maybe you had something on the weekends, but you couldn't really participate because you're doing sports. You're going, whether it be traveling to a game or something else. You wouldn't be set up for success. And so I saw that, and that was kind of a little negative, but
sure.
So petroleum engineering.
Part of being a student athlete, man.
Yeah, that's part of it, man. So we got to get people kind of everything. But again, I enjoyed it. Learned a lot from it.
Yeah, thank you, Gus. Hopefully, a kid from the DR sees this, man. That would be good. You know what I mean? A youngin that's coming up.
Well, whoever, man, you want to have an impact. And actually, let me just tell you this story too, because I remember I went back to I came back from college. I went to go visit some of my old teachers, and I remember going back to that gentleman's classroom, Pat O'Neill, and he put me on blast right on front, not on blast, but he kind of put me at center stage, and he told me, hey, go out there and speak to the kids. And at this time, they're kids that are very impressionable, and kids that come from somewhat of the same background I come from. And I went out there and kind of told them my story and spoke to them. And he opened it up for questions. And I remember one of the little girls from the Dominican Republic, and she asked me, when you think now, do you think in Spanish or English? And I thought that was one of the most profound questions to this day I've ever been asked. And I had to sit back and I paused for like 30 seconds and I was like, man, at this point in my life, you know, I would have conversations with myself, you know, mostly English. Like anytime I have a thought in my head of what I want to do, I'm talking to myself in English. And so much so now that after that question, if I catch myself talking to myself too much in English, I switch it up and I'm like, nah, I'm talking to myself in Spanish now.
Hey, that's good.
Yeah. So, you know, it's there's a lot going on sometimes in here because you got to process a lot of different things, you know. So that's again, but everybody's experience is different. You know, think about somebody who comes into college and they've only been in America for 3 years or so. You know, their language barrier is a little thicker than mine, a little you know, a little more difficult than mine, and so, you know, like I said, one of the names that comes up to mine is Andres Canap.
Yep.
So, but that's a guy we play with.
Yeah, make sure you hit that follow button from my boy Gus down there.
Hey, you know what, man? I really be on social media like that.
So now
You want to start?
Now you about to be on.
You got to start.
Tell Bianca to let you log in so you can see your followers.
Hey, listen, man, anytime you got some more topics you want to discuss, you want to have me on, just let me know. I'll get on, man.
Yeah,
no, I want to be part of a lot of what you guys talk. I mean, I tune in every week. I listen, and as I'm listening, I'm like, man, I wish they said this, or that's great that they said that because I wasn't thinking about that. You know?
Yeah.
That's good.
Appreciate
it. We'll get you back on, man. So
make sure you ain't thinking in English too much.
No, listen, I was gonna tell Ty, like, you might have to edit me left and right in here because I might say some stuff. You know how I be.
Yeah, I know.
I worked on it. My public speaking is a little better now.
But we appreciate you, bro. I'm gonna shoot you a text after this, dog.
Appreciate you, my guy.
All right, bro.
All right,
I'll
guys.
talk to you later.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Good meeting you.
There you have it, man. Hearing from, you know, the foreign student athlete, hearing that experience was a real eye opener for a lot of us. You know, some things that we think is, you know, we have rough is really, you know,
not even close.
It's really peanuts compared to, you know, what some people grow up, you know, experiencing. So it was good to hear that experience. It was good to hear about, you know, what they thought about sports growing up, who their heroes was, you know, and, you know, really getting the feel of that Dominican Republic vibe as a young student athlete or as a young person growing up, man. So it was good to have Gus on, but as always, make sure you go ahead and hit that follow button for Status 412_ on IG. Hit that follow button right there.
Let's go.
We'll see y'all next time, man.
We appreciate y'all, man. Keep tuning in. Subscribe.
Status Podcast.